Hello Dragon Ball Super family. I'm Legends Michael Kerrick of Team FoX PPG, and today I'm going to bring you my King Piccolo decklist for Cards of Magica's UW format event, in which I went X1, losing in the final round to Gogeta Xena. This deck profile is going to be a bit different from what you're used to. You can see behind me that the entire deck is already laid out for those who are interested in playing this deck for the few weeks it has left. Due to the oncoming ban list, I'm going to quickly go over the actual deck list, and then I want to use the rest of this video to discuss some deck building tips and playmaking decisions. If you're a beginner or just want to level up a Dragon Ball Super trading card game, the rest of this video, or rather the second portion, may be helpful for you. So let's quickly go over and do this actual deck list. So for the deck list, I'm also going to go over what's going to get hit on the ban list, so that people don't have to invest their money in a deck that probably won't be played anymore. But quickly, the leader is King Piccolo from set 12, and then his backside of King Piccolo Demonic Rejuvenation. Basically, the gist of this leader is that you can put cards from your demons, red demon clans, or red Namekians into your life, face up, and then later use them as an activate battle to combo with them from your life. And some of these guys play themselves. So quickly going over, our main unison is going to be the Piccolo Jr. Descendant of the King. 4 copies of this card. So this card will be going to 1 in the next ban list. This card is excellent unison, probably a necessary unison for this deck, since it's the only red unison that I know of that has Rejuvenate, which is required for some of the cards on this deck. It lets you draw 1, which is a huge boost. Its auto allows you to kill any battle card 15k or less when a counter skill is activated by your opponent, and then its -2 lets you pick one of your 3 cost battle cards and wipe out all your opponent's battle cards with less power than the card that you chose. Additionally, afterwards, you can -2 again to rejuvenate 1 life. 4 copies of Piano, Reign of Terror. This card is going to get banned, but effectively, once you added cards from your life to your hand once per turn, during either player's turn, mind you, it lets you draw a card. Added cards to your life from anywhere, sorry, not just your hand. Played 4 copies of Dragon Ball King Piccolo Dragon Ball Obsession. This card is just your basic 1 energy. Play this card, tutor the top 5 cards, or look through the top 5 cards of your deck, and then tutor a Unison 2-drop or a Namekian or Demon Clan card of 4 or less cost. Probably. Yep. And then we played 4 copies of King Piccolo Time to Fight. It's just the evolve target on top of King Piccolo Dragon Ball Obsession. When you evolve into this card, specifically evolve, can't hardcast it, you get to tutor out pretty much your whole deck. You get to tutor out a Unison with specified cost of 2, you get to tutor out a Namekian, a red Namekian, or a red Demon Clan with energy cost of 4 or less. And then when it swings or when it's played, you get to give one of your red Demon Clans 20k power for the rest of the turn. Super cool when you combine it with some other cards. Then for the actual Demon Clan package, we play the full 4 symbol Reign of Terror, 4 Tambourine Reign of Terror, and the 1 copy of Drum Reign of Terror. They're just basic. You need them to be able to play this deck. They all play themselves for free once they've been comboed from your life. Super effective. Played 3 copies of King Piccolo First Step to Revival, mainly because on turn 3 we want to be able to use this card from our hand, combo from our hand to combo one of these from life, giving you 2 combo cards in your combo area, allowing you to play Divine Presence, the card next to it. Great tech choice. It also lets you get your life down to 4 so that you can use your super combos, or early game lets you get your life down to 5 so you can defend with testing the oppositions and defend your unison. It also allows you to boost any of your red Piccolo, red Demon Clan or Namekian cards by 5k for the turn by warping this from the drop, so you can even boost your leader with that effect. Super cool when you need to push for that extra 5k to clear cards or avoid other super combos. Play 2 copies of Son Goku Divine Presence. I bounced back and forth playing 2 or 3 copies of this card in this deck. I wanted to play 3 because it's a turn 3 play, but I also didn't want to play 3 because it wasn't a Namekian. It was an easy charge and it's a 5k combo, but you can't really resolve more than 2 in a game anyway. So I ended up sticking with 2. Super great card. I would recommend picking up this card if you're going to be a red player in the future. It's got dual attack 25k effectively, gives 5k to something when it comes out, and then tutors out a skillless card from your, or skillless 2-drop from your deck when it swings. Speaking of skillless 2-drop from the deck, I played 1 copy of the Piccolo. It's a red Namekian skillless, so it can interact with our leader skill. It can be tutored out with these if you really need to, but more importantly, it can be tutored out with from Divine Presence's effect, netting you a +1 in card advantage. I ended up going with only 3 copies of Yamcha Merciless Barrage instead of 4 because there aren't very many cards this card can hit on turn 2, since you can only hit cards that have a counter window 2. What I mean by that is, like, if your opponent plays a card on turn 2 through just hard casting, which is generally what people do on turn 2, this card won't be able to hit anything. In the mirror, when it does hit something on turn 2, they usually have their unison up already, so you're just going to lose your geometry. You're trading 1 for 1. I played 3 copies of Vegeta Resolve Renewed to beat out Oceanus, the Xeno Oceanus Inchurn on Floodgate, and to beat out Mecha Riposte as a Floodgate. Really great card for that. Also in this deck, it's unique because even though it's only a 10k swinger, since you can combo once for free every turn, it becomes effectively a 15k attacker in this deck. Played 4 copies of Piccolo Jr., the King Sai. This card's disgusting. I don't know why people play this at less than 4. You want to see it on turn 2. You want to see it in your life because now it becomes a 10k combo in your life off your leader effect for 0 energy. You want to see multiple copies turn after turn because you can use it the turn prior, and even if it's still in the field, you can negate with it the next turn and it just goes to the drop. Card's ridiculous. Moving forward, played 4 copies of Testing the Opposition. I wanted to see that card on turn 2 to defend my Unison. Also, it just blocks 2 attacks in this deck, and unless you're going against specifically this Unison, this negate is insane in this game. And now that this Unison is getting limited to 1, I expect to see 3 to 4 copies of this in every colored deck in the game now. Played 2 copies of Wolfang Fist for the mirror match. I wanted to be able to make sure I could snipe out Tambourines before they got their boost to 20k. I wanted to make sure I could kill drums. I also wanted to make sure I could beat out like literally any kind of 15k attack in the mirror match. Wolfang Fist was really big for. Also in the U7 matchup, it lets me snipe out that Android 17 that they play on turn 2, especially because I'll have my Unison out on turn 2 already. And of course it's a 0-mana negate, which is really interesting. Really a huge focal point for this deck. I played 2 copies of Realm of the Gods Ultra Instinct for the Sin Shenron matchups. I know like Sin Shenron is able to stun out some of these control decks, or some of these, faster aggro decks, so Realm of the Gods lets me get past that 9-drop Sin Shenron and then push past to win. It's also decent in this King Cold meta, which I was really expecting, and played against 2 King Cold decks today. When they slam that Frieza on 3, it gives you a 1-mana out to that Frieza that they spent 3 energy for. So it was a really great card. It actually never came up today, but I'm really glad I played it. I played 2 copies of the Vegito Unison. The Vegito Unison, as my friend Giancarlo likes to say, is like an emergency button for this deck. In case you're like kind of behind, you can kind of clear field going to your turn 4 using your battle cards or your ready to develop field. And then you can play the Vegito Unison -2 to buy back your next turn, because then your opponent goes into their turn 4 or turn 5 and effectively does nothing for a turn and it passes back to you. And then even better, if you can defend the Vegito Unison for that turn, then you can get another turn with this Vegito Unison and your opponent's actively locked out of the game. It's kind of like a baby Apex of Power for this deck. Additionally, Vegito Unison lets you beat out Floodgates, so like on turn 4, if you don't have this Vegeta on hand and you just want to play to develop it, you can actually play it before you attack with anything, -2, and now your opponent can't actually negate with the Floodgates outside of Baby Hatch here, because that card will still stop your turn. I played 4 copies of Rayan, Raditz Saiyan Youth. Raditz it's a UW format. Generally, you would play the Piccolo Super Combo, but being a UW format, you can't play the Piccolo Super Combo since it's from like set 8. This combo actually was really good for this deck, since there are a lot of I'm playing 6 Unisons, a couple of cards I can't combo with, so let me send those away when I was pushing. Additionally, since I played this Piccolo that my Divine Presence could add, I could send away the Piccolo with my Raditz and then add it back again for another +1 with my Divine Presence attack. It was a super niche setup. Once I realized I had to play Raditz's, the Piccolo inclusion was a no-brainer. And then, of course, going to the 1-0s, we have 1 copy of New Ruler. It's just a free basic 20k unblockable attack. We have 1 copy of Vegeta Royal Bonds or Bloodline. It's like the Champa of this set. Since you can't use Champa or Supreme Kai to add Double Strike in UW format, instead you can use these cards that let you restand your leader to get another attack in. So it kind of gives you another extra attack that your opponent can't really prepare for. Played a copy of Secret ID for my Overwhelm. I really didn't think FAF was really that great in this format. But killing people is never really the issue with this deck, but Secret ID getting past like pesky blockers or just clearing field so that you can focus on life is a really big boon. And then of course for the SCR, the best red SCR in the game that's not named Apex of Power, we played his friend Vegeta Unbridled whatever the heck, Destruction. This card is insane. You tap 4 for this, you get to clear your opponent's field, set their leader back to 10k if they're already awakened. Now all of your attacks are just significantly harder to combo out of. It also gives this deck a great out to Boo Unison or Mechikabura, the yellow 4-drop Unison, which is really important because they spent their whole turn, like all 4 turns, developing this field into this Unison to defend their life, and now you clear it all for 4 energy, and you get to crit 1 of their life, and unless they have a turn ender, you're probably going to do quite a bit of damage to them. Usually on turn 4 or 5, this is a great card to either win the game or to swing the game so heavily in my favor that my opponent's cannot come back. So quickly, that was just the UW version of this King Piccolo deck that I ended up going 6-1 with. I went undefeated until my last round, which was versus Gogeta Xeno, which is notoriously the worst matchup for this deck. I did misplay in my turn, during my opponent's turn 2. I defensively sequenced poorly. I should have taken one of the attacks and then defended my Unison better. Instead, he ended up killing my Unison, which prevented me from killing him on the clapback. So I had to gear up for a defensive turn without any super combos, and that cost me the game. But like I said, I wanted to use this video to discuss some deck building tips and playmaking decisions. So let's begin with deck building. I want to start off by discussing the concept of ratios. When looking at ratios for building your deck, I believe that 4-ofs should either be necessary engine pieces for the deck to work, such as Demon Clan family in this deck, some combination of 4 super combos, of course, and what I call starters. In reference to this deck, those would include the King Piccolo, Dragon Ball Obsession, or Piano, Reign of Terror. Starters are considered cards that you want to play on turn 1 or 2, cards that you want to slam down to get your engine going. Looking at the KP deck behind me, my starters are Piano and Dragon Ball Obsessed, and then by turn 2, I always want to see my Unison in either a King Scion or testing the opposition to defend my Unison. Now, let's go into 3-ofs. I would suggest that 3-ofs are cards that you want to see by turn 3. In regards to this deck, on turn 3, I want to have a Yamcha securely in my hand, a Vegeta Resolve Renew since it only works with 3 energy, and a King Piccolo First Step to Revival to be able to bring myself down to 4 life or to turn on supers. Or 5 life to turn on testing the oppositions. I briefly mentioned in the deck profile that I wanted to play a 3rd Divine Presence, but I realized I trimmed it down to 2 because I realized I couldn't resolve more than 2 in a game. And adding that 3rd, I think, really reduces the consistency of the deck. Moving along into 2-ofs, these are cards you generally want to tech to improve your poor matchups. For me, my 2-ofs covered my weaknesses, such as Wolfang Fist for the Mirror, Realm of the Gods for Sin Shenron, and Divine Presence for Blues Boo Unison, and Vegito for control decks. So 2-ofs are really these cards that you want to see at least one of, and maybe a second copy of, but you can't afford to see a 3rd copy of them, because it would just goo up your deck. Finally, 1-ofs. Aside from the obvious 1-ofs like SCRs and cards that are limited 1, you should consider 1-ofs when multiple copies would break your hand. For instance, having 2 secret IDs makes my turn 1 and turn 2 riskier, since I could potentially open with my starters and then 2 black cards, forcing me to charge a starter. Next, let's discuss things to consider when deck building. The concept of plus ones. In every card game, a +1 is a powerful tool since it offers you an extra option. Looking at the deck behind me, you can see the Skillless Piccolo card. This is a great example of a +1 concept. I utilized the Divine Presence, as said earlier, to add the Skillless Piccolo card when it attacks, netting me a +1 in card advantage. Additionally, since we're in a UW format, I had to naturally play the Raditz Super Combo anyway, which would let me bottom deck the Piccolo and then add it again in future attacks with Divine Presence, adding more +1s. Of course, the Piccolo effectively also synergizes with the deck since it's a red Namekian. You want to make sure your +1 combos actually add something to your deck. Let's discuss turn process as well. When you're building your deck, make sure you can imagine your turn-by-turn ideal lines. For example, when building King Piccolo, I knew that I wanted a starter for turn 1, a Unison on turn 2, Divine Presence on 3, and Vegito Unison or SCR on 4. Of course, games rarely go this smoothly, but once you know your ideal line, everything else you add to your deck is just there to assist that line. Adding more fluff to your deck to clog these lines up oftentimes just ruins the consistency of your own deck. Finally, let's discuss finishers. Know what your kill cons are supposed to look like. Is it a large double strike with Champa? Is it a cool boss battle card? For this deck behind me, it was the SCR turn, since it would reduce the opponent's leader power by 5k. Having access to counterplays for counterattacks with a wide board, or the Vegeta Royal Bloodline card since it gave me access to a sneaky second attack through the leader. Wow, that was a lot to get through. We'll use these last moments to discuss playmaking decisions. Let's begin with the mulligan. When you get to mulligan in this game, you want to look for your starters first. What will help your deck's wheels start turning? For this deck, it would be the Piccolo Unison, followed by Dragon Ball Obsession and Piano. But what if I find a win con in my opening hand? Well, I would say you shouldn't keep it, unless your win con is coming up in the first 2 turns. In most Dragon Ball decks, you will see 10 to 15 new cards between your life and your deck before your win con turn even comes up. So send those win cons back and look for your starter and mid-game cards. Some people ask, what about tech-based cards? Well, unless those techs are going to swing the game in the first 2 turns, I wouldn't even keep those. You need to make sure your own deck is working before you try to freeze out your opponent. Otherwise, you'll find yourself with dead turns and nothing to do to advance your own game state. And now, to avoid making this video too long to enjoy, we'll wrap up our discussion by discussing clearing board or going face. Some factors I want you to consider when going for health damage on an opponent. Do I have a line to kill my opponent this turn? Can they awaken on their own? Do they have a key piece for their combo on the field? Would I be turning on their super combos for their swing back? These are questions you should ask yourself every turn when you go into the turn and make a decision whether you should be swinging at field or life. Additionally, it's important to remember that energy is a finite resource in this game, and your opponent's field costs them energy to generate it. If you can clear field while maintaining your own, a concept called board control, then you have effectively put the tempo in your favor, since now they have to make all those considerations that you just made. You put the mistake possibility in their hands now. Well, this will wrap up this deck profile / informational session. I hope this helps somebody grasp the game a bit better and enjoy the game more. A quick shout out to Team Foex PPG for being such an awesome community to compete with. Shout out to my Fort Walton Beach crew for constantly challenging me to be better. And for those who travel into the Pensacola Fort Walton Beach area, we have our locals on Wednesdays and Fridays, a quick plug, starting at 7. And shout out to my girl for supporting me through all of this, despite not playing the game herself. I will catch y'all next time.